Hello everyone, I'm back in my beach resort toy box along with Stitch, and today I'm going to show you the logic for the surfing challenge that I demonstrated in the previous episode. In this challenge, you have to use the surfboard and the incoming wave, which I've turned off temporarily for this episode, but you have to use the surfboard and the incoming wave to reach all of the collectibles. And unlike the wave and even some of my other sports games, this is a very easy challenge to build. And you'll notice I've done a little cleanup again. The command center that we set up out there last time is down below the terrain now. That's where I turned off the wave from. And I've also placed the Creativitoys that we're going to need, and I'll review those here next, I guess. There's not many that you'll need, as you can see. So we have a challenge maker and two locators, both of them with the blue dot facing outward towards the ocean. We have a replayer, a timer, a collectible tracker, two logic gates, and a time delayer. And I've also placed all of the collectibles ahead of time as well. And I've done this in other episodes before with the replayer, so I'm not going to repeat that again here. You can look at some of my other episodes, but let me do a playback on my replayer here. So there are all of the collectibles that we're going to use. And I'm using the gold challenge orb, by the way. I wanted to use the sand dollar collectible previously, or originally, but it doesn't work with the collectible tracker, unfortunately. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, the sand dollar is down here. It came from the Finding Dory playset, and it was one of the last toys added in the final update for Disney Infinity 3.0. And I really like this little thing. It fits the beach theme pretty well. The problem is that the collectible tracker doesn't work with it. I think there's a bug there somewhere. You can pick this from the list of collectibles in the collectible tracker properties, which we're going to look at in a moment. So it seems like it should work, but unfortunately when you pick these up, the collectible tracker isn't going to broadcast any trigger signals. So I can't use this to build this collectible the way I would want. There is a way to do it, I think, by collecting or connecting logic connections up to each and every one of these collectibles rather than using the collectible tracker, but that is a lot of work, and it's just easier to use something else instead, so that's what I did. And I kind of liked the plain gold challenge orb because it fits the color of the beach pretty well. And it stands out against the blue here, but you can use any collectible that you want. Any of the other collectibles, all of the other collectibles seem to work fine with the collectible tracker. And you'll notice I've got these spread out all over the ocean. And the placement of these doesn't matter. I put 20 of them out here scattered around. They're at various heights. So some of them, like this one, are right on the ground. Some of them, like this one, are up a couple of notches, and you can actually jump and reach that from the ground without using the wave. And then there's other ones like this one out here that's just up one nudge up off the ground. Again, that's easy to reach without a wave. But then there's ones like this, which you cannot reach this without using the wave to get up to it and jumping up off the wave to reach it. Or of course you can cheat. But this is how high up off the ground this is 1, 2, 3, 4 nudges up. And you don't want to go any higher than that because you're not going to be able to jump much higher off of the wave when you're riding the surfboard. And I only have a few of those out at this height because I kind of stink at that. So I've got like 4 of them up at that height that you got to use the wave to reach. And these others that are on the ground, it's just a matter of avoiding the wave and picking those up. So that's the collectible placement. Again, there's about 20 of them out there scattered around. The exact placement of those doesn't matter. So let me step on my replayer and clear it. And there we go. Alright, so let's begin connecting the logic for these. I'm going to mix up those two words, collecting and connecting. But anyway, we'll open the logic menu for the challenge maker. And under the properties, everything stays the same under here except the results score label. We're going to set that to time because this is a timed challenge. And all the rest of these properties are fine. The time delayer, the default property under here of 1 second is fine. For the replayer, I set the playback interval to 0. On the timer, we're going to turn off visible display and count down because we're going to count upward. And the target time doesn't matter, so you can just leave that. And on the collectible tracker, for the properties on that, we're going to set the collectible type to be the gold challenge orb. You could leave that set to any or all or whatever that default was, because this is the only collectible challenge in here. But if you're going to build on this in your own toy box, you probably want to do that. Just set this specifically to that collectible. And we'll go ahead and show on the radar, because that's always helpful. All right, so let's start with the challenge maker. We're going to first do a new locator connection. I'm going to connect up to this locator. This will be player 1's start position. And if you have 2 players, this will be player 2's start position. And if you want to play this with 2 players, you can do that. You're just both going to be working to collect all of the collectibles as fast as you can. So it'll be a team effort. All right. On the challenge maker, let's begin with the timer. So we're going to do a new logic connection. On invites accepted, we'll come over to our timer. And sorry, I'm swinging the camera around here. It seems to be a little weird, but so on invites accepted, we're going to reset the timer. All right. And then there's 2 things I want to do on started with the timer. And again, because I cannot connect 2 started signals to this same timer, we're going to send one of them through this challenge gate. But first, let's go to the timer, and when the game is started, we want to start the timer. And because we turned off the display in the properties, we need to turn on the display. So, new logic connection on started. Come over to the logic gate and input. And on the logic gate, a new logic connection on output. Come over to the timer and show the timer display. And the reason this is turned off by default, and the visible property is turned off by... the reason I turned that property off, it's not off by default, I turned it off, is because we also have another timer for the basketball game. And so we want to make sure both of those timers are off initially. And we're only turning on the display for the one that we're using with the challenge that we're playing. All right, on the challenge maker, new logic connection on game ended. And once again, there's 2 things I want to do on game ended. And so that's why we have this second logic gate out here. But for the first one, we'll go directly to the timer. First thing we want to do is make sure that timer is paused. It should be if we finish the challenge, but if the player decides to abort the challenge for some reason, that's the purpose of this. So we're going to pause the timer. Second thing we want to do is remove the timer from the display. So we'll do a new logic connection on game ended, and once again I can't connect that up a second time to the timer. That's why we're going through the logic gate. So we'll do an input to that. New logic connection on output. Connect up to the timer and hide it. And the last thing we'll do with the timer from the challenge maker is a new time results connection. At the end of the challenge, we want to show the final result. So there we go. And that is it for the challenge maker connecting to the timer. All right. Next thing we need to do is put the collectibles out there. So on the challenge maker, a new logic connection on invites accepted. We come over to our replayer and we do a playback. And when the challenge is over, we need to remove those. But I don't want to go directly from here on game ended to the replayer, because picking up that last collectible will cause our collectible tracker to end the game, which I haven't made that connection yet. And then we're going to turn right around and remove the collectible, and so that could potentially cause a problem. So that's why we have the time delayer. So on the challenge maker, a new logic connection on game ended, we'll go to the time delayer and start the delay. And 1 second later this will go off. So on the time delayer we'll do a new logic connection when the delay is completed. Come over here to the replayer and clear. And that way we won't be removing the collectible that started the whole end of game thing, which could potentially cause a crash or something. All right. And with that, I believe that's everything for the challenge maker. I'm just double checking my notes. Yeah, we've connected it up to both of those logic gates, to the time delayer, to the timer, to the locators. And we need to go now to the collectible tracker. So on the challenge maker, a new logic connection on invites accepted. We want to make sure we reset the collectible tracker. Okay, and that's the last connection I believe we need to make from the challenge maker. All right, from this point on, the rest of the game is controlled by the collectible tracker. So on the collectible tracker, we're going to do a new logic connection. When the final collectible is collected and the player has picked them all up, there's two things we need to do. First thing we want to do is to pause the timer. We want to lock in that time. And then the second thing we want to do on the collectible tracker is a new logic connection when the final collectible is collected. Come over to the challenge maker and complete the game. And that will end the game. And those are the two things that we need to do with that. And I believe that is everything. It's a very simple challenge to make, as I said. So let me just double check my notes real quick. And yeah, looks like that's everything. If I missed anything, I'll make sure I put it on the logic diagram. But that's how you can combine a basic collection quest with surfing. And it's a pretty fun game to play, as you saw in the previous episode. Next time we'll visit Monsters University, and I'll show you how to build and play a version of football in the toy box. Before you go, I want to remind you that I have logic diagrams on my blog to help you connect the Creativitoys that I used today if you want to build this challenge in your own toy box. The link is in the video description. You can also subscribe to my channel by clicking my photo in the lower right corner. That's all for me today. Take care.